Good afternoon, everybody. It is Steve Lookner with Agenda Free TV. We are coming live to bring you an update on, well, more than one story, but one story in particular. The Cuban government says it killed 4 people and injured 6 others on a speedboat registered in Florida. They said the boat was in Cuban territorial waters. A lot we don't know about this story, but we want to bring you the latest updates, take comments from you guys. J.D. Vance just gave a bit of a comment on this. He didn't say that much, but I'm going to show you what J.D. Vance said. Yeah, a lot of confusion here. But again, the Cuban government says it was a boat registered in Florida that was in Cuban territorial waters. And they said 4 people were killed and 6 injured on the boat. They claimed the boat shot first. So we are going to bring you some live coverage of this. There's also a couple other stories I want to talk about while we're on the air. So we're going to do that as well. Quick thanks, by the way, to Baron Crosswinds and Kenneth Colton and I Am Charlie for the memberships. It's very nice of you. Also, Jason33 for being a member. Let me shout out our moderators who are here moderating. Ruth is moderating. Janet B is moderating over there on YouTube. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And we also have, one moment please. Will this turn out to be a huge story? Not a huge story? I honestly don't know. I don't know. Thanks Matthew Kohai 3 and Surly Dev who are moderating on Twitch. Thanks also Battle Him Finn for subscribing on Twitch. Thanks also Dodger Blue to you, our member. Linda Belk, Larry, and Misha moderates for us on X. And also, let's see. Oh, I know what happened. I know what happened here. You know, on YouTube still has this issue. When you go live on YouTube, it automatically switches you to putting in ads in the middle of the stream, even if you didn't want it to, even if you told it not to. So every time I go live now, until they fix it, I have to manually switch it back, but I just switched it back. Sorry about that. Again, YouTube says they're working on a fix, but they have not fixed it yet, so I just manually fixed it myself. Thanks also to our Facebook viewers, and all well, our viewers, but also our moderators. Margaret Riley is moderating, Kay Lowry Body. Thanks to all of our moderators there. Ava Knight, thank you. Okay, so we're going to get into this now. And again, I don't know. This could turn out to be a huge story or less than a huge story. I just don't know. There's so much we don't know about this right now. But I think it's a potentially really big story. Also, I just saw a new report. I just want to mention this. I just saw this report that Pima County is instituting a no parking zone outside Nancy Guthrie's house. And they say people can still report from there. But according to Nicholas Bogle Burrows, he says that the closest parking lot he knows of is a 30-minute walk. Anyways, there were some people over at her house today, some authorities, so we can maybe give you an update on that a little later. We'll talk about that a little later. Okay, but let's start with Cuba. All right, so I'm going to first tell you what the Cuban government says, and then we're going to get into some of the details of this. All right, we're going to do that. And give me a moment here. Hold on a second here. Okay. Here is what the Cuban government has to say. Here's what they said. We're going to get into the details. We're going to take your comments on the air. Okay. Oops. And I'm hearing two of myself. Here's what, hold on. Wait. Okay. I'm going to show you what J.D. Vance said. Okay. This is, you can see, it's Cuban embassy in the U.S. So this is a Cuban government statement. Note from the Ministry of the Interior. This morning, on the morning of February 25th, that's this morning, a violating speedboat was detected within Cuban territorial waters. Now, by the way, a number of the boats, I think probably most of the boats, if not all, that the U.S. has shot and destroyed in the Caribbean in recent months have been speedboats. I have no idea if there's any connection here. Anyways, on the morning of February 25th, 2026, today, a violating speedboat was detected within Cuban territorial waters. The vessel, registered in Florida, United States, with registration number FL7726SH, approached up to 1 nautical mile northeast of the El Pino Channel and Cayo Falcones, Corralillo, no, I think there, it's not Argentina there, it's Cuba, Corralillo municipality, Villa Clara province. When a surface unit of the border guard troops of the Cuban Ministry of the Interior, carrying 5 Cuban service members, approached the vessel for identification, the crew of the violating speedboat opened fire on Cuban personnel, resulting in the injury of the commander of the Cuban vessel. Now again, I can't confirm any of these details. This is what the Cuban government is saying. Why would people in a speedboat a mile away from, in Cuban territorial waters, close to the coast, within 1 nautical mile northeast of the El Pino Channel, why would they open fire on Cuban border guard troops? I don't know. Anyways, Cuba says, as a consequence of the confrontation, after the boat opened fire on the Cuban forces, as a consequence of the confrontation, as of the time of this report, 4 aggressors on the foreign vessel were killed and 6 were injured. The injured individuals were evacuated and received medical assistance. You know, it's interesting. They don't say, I think I said shot and killed in my description for this broadcast, and I was assuming that they shot and killed them. But it doesn't say that here. I mean, in theory, they could have blown up. I'll have to check. I want to say maybe other reports they shot and killed too. Anyways, if I'm reading this right, it says the speedboat opened fire on the Cuban forces, and then, presumably, the Cuban forces shot at the boat because 4 aggressors on the foreign vessel were killed and 6 were injured. I guess they could have stabbed them or something, or fired a missile at it or something. But to be clear here, it doesn't say that the Cuban forces shot them. You see what I'm saying? Anyways, my assumption is that they shot them. Or at least my assumption is that the story is that they shot them. I cannot confirm any of these details. The injured, so again, as a consequence of the confrontation, as of the time of this report, 4 aggressors on the foreign vessel were killed and 6 were injured. The injured individuals were evacuated and received medical assistance. In the face of current challenges, Cuba reaffirms its determination to protect its territorial waters based on the principle that national defense is a fundamental pillar of the Cuban state in safeguarding its sovereignty and ensuring stability in the region. Investigations by the competent authorities continue in order to fully clarify the events. All right, I know people have a lot of comments on this. There's a bunch more things I want to talk about. Some of our viewers are commenting on the fact that it's 10 people on a speedboat, it sounds like, at least 10 people. Flaccidity says, business transaction go wrong? Some of our viewers think that Trump might attack Cuba. J.D. Vance just spoke about this a few minutes ago. I want to show you that. Diplomod says, so they were doing something illegal. I don't know that. So I'm going to take your comments. There's a bunch to talk about with this. I want to show you J.D. Vance's comments on this, which we're going to do in a second. All of that coming up. But first, one thing we need to do, this is a sponsored broadcast. So before we do anything else, we got a lot to do. I'm going to take your comments. I want to play what J.D. Vance says. I want to show you some other comments from American officials. There's a bunch of comments from American officials about this. We're going to look at all that real quick. A quick word, we are sponsored by our sponsor, Tax USA. So a quick word from me about our sponsor, Tax USA. And as soon as that's over, we will get to everything about this story. Do you owe back taxes or haven't filed in years? If the answer is yes, the IRS could take your wages, bank accounts, and more. If you want to avoid this, you can get help resolving your tax matters with Tax Network USA. Tax Network USA is a tax resolution firm that specializes in resolving and reducing IRS tax issues. They've helped many clients reduce their tax liability and penalties. Their powerful programs and strategies could save you thousands or even eliminate your debt entirely if you qualify. And right now, Tax Network USA is offering a completely free IRS research and discovery call to show you exactly where you stand and how they might be able to help. So if you're interested, give them a call, 1-800-958-1000, or find them on the web at tnusa.com/AFTV. Don't let the IRS be the first to act. Get protected with Tax Network USA and start the process on settling your tax matters once and for all today. Okay, I'm going to show you right now what J.D. Vance had to say moments ago. He was asked about this, and let's take a look at what J.D. Vance had to say. I just need to get it on the screen for you. I heard something about it. I haven't even watched that clip myself because I just heard about it right when we were coming on the air. So let's take a look at what J.D. Vance had to say. I can see it here. Can I get it on the screen for you? Okay, hold on. I'm playing it right now. That's not quite it. Nope. Ooh, here it is. There's J.D. Vance. That's obviously not live in Richmond, Virginia. That is moments ago. This is moments ago. J.D. Vance. I think I have it queued up. So here, he's going to be asked a question where he's asked about Cuba. What happened? I think, if I've queued it up right. Here we go. After Dr. Oz finishes speaking.
Fraud, those are simple, easy ways for you to help us address the problems the Vice President highlighted. God bless you all, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Great job. Very, very, very important initiative, and we'll take a few questions. I didn't expect you to put me on the spot with Bobby Kennedy about my fast food habits, but here we are. Sir in the front.
Two things, Mr. Vice President. First, can you talk about the legal authority under which the federal government pauses legally obligated funds under mandatory funding from Congress, such as Medicaid? And secondly, if you could tell us anything you know about the situation.
Hang on, I have to replay the audio cutout.
So on the second thing, actually, Marco briefed me about...
Hold on.
Secondly, if you could tell us anything you know about the situation off the coast of Cuba, where there's a speedboat shot. We've been briefed on that. You know, if Americans were killed or injured in it.
Yeah, so on the second thing, actually, Marco briefed me about 15 minutes ago on it, but we don't know a whole lot of details, and so I'll defer to the White House to provide more updates as we get them. Certainly, you know, a situation that we're monitoring. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more. On the question of the legal authorities, I mean, inherent in Congress's...
Okay, so he said moments ago, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has briefed him. He said, hopefully it's not as bad as it could be. That's what he said. So I don't know if that means they think it's not as bad as it could be, but he said that they don't have a lot of details. So I'm going to play that response again. I don't know what you think about that response. Let's see here. Here again is his response when asked about Cuba. Hang on a moment here.
The question has to go.
Secondly, if you obligated funds under mandatory funding from Congress, such as Medicaid. And secondly, if you could tell us anything you know about the situation off the coast of Cuba, where there's a speedboat shot. We've been briefed on that. You know, if Americans were killed or injured in it.
Yeah, so on the second thing, actually, Marco briefed me about 15 minutes ago on it, but we don't know a whole lot of details, and so I'll defer to the White House to provide more updates as we get them. Certainly, you know, a situation that we're monitoring. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more. On the question of the legal authorities, I mean, inherent in Congress's assigning.
Again, he said, hopefully it's not as bad as it could be. So again, I don't know if that means there's signs it's not as bad as it could be. But he said he was just briefed by Marco Rubio. Again, let's just get straight on the facts as they're coming from the Cuban government. I'm going to check some comments from you guys too. Pre-breakfast banana says, what does he think is bad? Yes, when he says as bad as it could be, does he mean like Americans on board? When he says it's not as bad as it could be, does he think that, look, that means there's not Americans on board? I'm not sure. Fritjof, our viewer, thinks they're not jumping to conclusions so they know Cuba was in the right. Fred Withrow says he lies so much. Riker says, what if this was a CIA drug boat? Does Cuba now have the right to kidnap Trump like the U.S. did with the Venezuela president? Our viewer, Ritus Glucosin, says, did they call them terrorists? Because if they did, it's fine. David Carson says, was this a fishing boat? Michelle Batten says, I can't believe a boat from my home state got attacked. All right, let's... Massachusetts guy says, no, we are not transporting fentanyl into Cuba. Here, again, is what the Cuban government had to say. You know, and look, when you see this, I have no idea what happened here. But remember, there have been threatening overtones coming from the U.S. government toward Cuba lately. I believe the Trump administration has made no secret of the fact they would like to see a change in government in Cuba. You know, also the U.S. has conducted dozens of strikes on what it says are drug boats, which I believe are usually speedboats, in the Caribbean. So when you hear of something like this from the Cuban government, a speedboat registered in Florida, the U.S., that the Cuban government says they killed 4 people on the boat and shot 6 and injured 6 others, well, you do think, at least I think, is this some sort of political action in response to the other stuff, or what's going on here? I don't know. I have no idea. So I don't know what this is all about. All right, so let's again, I want to read And also you wonder, how will the administration respond to this? Okay. Onyxander says the U.S. has been blockading Cuba. All right, so again, let me just read what the Cuban government says, and then we can take more comments. Then I'm going to show you some other stuff about this. By the way, thank you so much for the memberships. Stupid Thing, also Sharon Patton, our member. Stupid Thing, our member. Schaff, our member, for the memberships, and Rune for the membership. Thank you. Okay, the government says on the morning of February 25th, 2026, a violating speedboat was detected within Cuban territorial waters. The vessel, registered in Florida, United States, with registration number FL7726SH, approached up to 1 nautical mile northeast of the El Pino Channel in Cayo Falcones, Corralillo Municipality, Villa Clara Province. And by the way, I looked it up on a map. And Cayos, I assume they're talking about Cayos Falcones. Cayos Falcones is here. See, it says Cayos Falcones, right there, which is like an island north of Cuba mainland. So we're talking about off the north coast of Cuba is where this would be. Incidentally, the side of Cuba that Florida is on, right? It's a part of Cuba that's basically closest to Florida. You know, about 100 miles from the Florida Keys, maybe, or so. Anyways, so they said this speedboat registered in Florida approached up to 1 nautical mile northeast of El Pino Channel and Cayo Falcones. When a surface unit of the Cuban border guard troops of the Ministry of the Interior, carrying 5 surface members, approached the vessel for identification, the crew of the violating speedboat opened fire on the Cuban personnel, resulting in the injury of the commander of the Cuban vessel. As a consequence of the confrontation, I've seen it described as a shootout in some articles, at least one article. Again, they don't say here what the exact confrontation was. I'm assuming it's shooting. As a consequence of the confrontation, and as of the time of this report, 4 aggressors on the foreign vessel, they call it a foreign vessel, were killed and 6 were injured. The injured individuals were evacuated and received medical assistance. In the face of current challenges, now, is that a reference to the U.S., to the Trump administration, in the face of current challenges? Cuba reaffirms its determination to protect its territorial waters based on the principle that national defense is a fundamental pillar of the Cuban state in safeguarding its sovereignty and ensuring stability in the region. Investigations by the competent authorities continue in order to fully clarify the events. Another thing that strikes me is, if this was, say, suppose, I have no idea what's going on with this boat, but if Cuba thought that, suppose Cuba thought that this was a drug smuggling boat that was trying to bring drugs into Cuba, would they then say, in the face of current challenges, Cuba reaffirms its determination to protect its territorial waters based on the principle that national defense is a fundamental pillar of the Cuban state in safeguarding its sovereignty and ensuring stability in the region? It would seem to me that if it was a drug boat, they would say something like, we do not allow drugs. We, in our country, if you think you can bring drugs in here, think again, or something like it. It is really not. Now, who knows what actually happened? But it's certainly not stated like that. They're talking about a foreign vessel and national defense and safeguarding its sovereignty. That guy, Mike, says if it were U.S. Special Forces, it would be a different outcome. Oh, don't get involved, says freedom fighters trying to establish democracy back to Cuba. Fritjof thinks a drug boat wouldn't have 10 people on board. I don't know what's going on here. And Hatalusen says they were hailed to stop and started shooting. The thing is, though, I mean, look, if what they said here is really true, if the Cuban government stopped this boat and the boat started shooting at the Cuban forces, I mean, it would seem like in that case, that would probably be a last resort for the people on the boat. I'm assuming people on this boat probably wouldn't think it's a great option to shoot at Cuban forces. So, I mean, if they didn't want Cuban forces to find them, why would they be 1 mile off the coast? Again, I don't know. Exile thinks it sounds like a state-sponsored operation gone wrong. Massachusetts guy says they knew they were caught. Okay, let's take a look at some other things here. It's a confusing situation. Okay, now, let me show you this. This is the Florida Attorney General posted about this, gave a statement. Now, also, Representative Carlos Jimenez posted about this. He is really, if I remember right, I believe he's super anti-Cuba. Yes, Carlos Jimenez is a Florida congressman. Give me one moment here. So let me show you what they had to say. CC thinks possibly trafficking people. All right. Yeah, from my understanding is that Carlos Jimenez, if I remember in the past, in front of him, I'm seeing online, is pretty against the regime in Cuba. Okay, here is what, first of all, the Attorney General of Florida said. Attorney General James Uthmeier. He writes, Attorney General James Uthmeier, I have directed the Office of Statewide Prosecution in Florida to work with our federal, state, and law enforcement partners to begin an investigation. The Cuban government, he says, cannot be trusted, and we will do everything in our power to hold these communists accountable. By the way, it is not even being confirmed who was on this boat. And he reposted Carlos Jimenez, who, again, I believe, if I have this right, is he's very against the Cuban regime. He's a congressman in Florida. Carlos Jimenez said in Spanish, well, you can see it here, said, it's translated, the dictatorship in Cuba has just attacked a boat. That's not the boat, by the way. That's a picture of the Coast Guard. The boat was a speedboat. The dictatorship in Cuba has just attacked a boat from Florida and murdered those on board, says Representative Jimenez. This regime must be relegated to the dustbin of history. Our viewer Hatalusen says another Bay of Pigs. You're saying it was an operation where the U.S. was trying to bring forces into Cuba? That's what you think? Marco Rubio, I don't know if he's... We just heard minutes ago from Vice President Vance that he had been briefed by Marco Rubio. But at least before I came on the air, I had not seen a statement from Marco Rubio on this. but maybe he posted something the last few minutes. Thank you, by the way, to John Posey. I appreciate that, John. Let me see if President Trump has posted anything about this. I don't see anything new from Marco Rubio, but hold on a moment. I mean, obviously some more could come out about this while we're on the air. I don't see anything on Truth Social from President Trump about this. All right, let me again just show you, because I think it's important, what moments ago Vice President Vance had to say about this. Just moments ago. He answered to give a brief answer to a question about it. Here he is, J.D. Vance.
The federal government pauses legally obligated funds under mandatory funding from Congress, such as Medicaid. And secondly, if you could tell us anything you know about the situation off the coast of Cuba, where there's a speedboat shot. We've been briefed on that. You know, if Americans were killed or injured in it.
Yeah, so on the second thing, actually, Marco briefed me about 15 minutes ago on it, but we don't know a whole lot of details, and so I'll defer to the White House to provide more updates as we get them. Certainly, you know, a situation that we're monitoring. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more. On the question of the legal authorities, I mean, inherent in Congress's
he did say we don't have a lot of details, right? Isn't that what he said? We don't have a lot of details?
Signing 5 minutes ago. Yeah, so on the second thing, actually, Marco briefed me about 15 minutes ago on it, but we don't know a whole lot of details, and so I'll defer to the White House to provide more updates as we get them. Certainly, you know, a situation that we're monitoring. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more. On the question of the legal authorities, I mean, inherent in
so he
Congress's,
says we don't have a lot of. He says we don't have a lot of details. He said, hopefully it's not as bad as we think it could be. And he says he can't say more right now. He was briefed by Marco Rubio. Fofer, our viewer, says they'll make up the details as they require them. Flying Dustman says, what are you doing with 10 people on a speedboat 100 miles away from Florida on a U.S. registered boat? You would definitely attract the attention of the Coast Guard. It's their job to check. Where are the wounded from the speedboat now, says Barcodable. I do not know. Cuba said that, that they had gotten treatment, the 6 injured. Cuba said that the 6 injured were evacuated and received medical assistance. Momachti says Cuba must be paranoid from Marco Rubio regime change. Mr. XDBX says a mile off the coast, pay attention to this matter. Hang on. I might be getting another map of this. Hold on. Give me one moment. Let me check something here. Yeah, it was just north of the coast of Cuba. All right, let me show you some other updates here. Where is this whole story going to go? Is this story going to get bigger, or is it going to kind of just go away? I have no idea. Did Cuba say why, said Simba Coyle. Cuba said that the people on the boat shot at the Cuban forces who went to check out the boat. Here, let me show you something else about this. One moment, please. One moment, please. You can see here from AP, Cuba says it killed 4 people aboard Florida-registered speedboat that opened fire on soldiers. Yeah, I showed a map before. It's about a mile north of, they said, there was a certain channel in Cayos Falcones. So there's Cayos Falcones. So as I understand it, it's about a mile north of Cayos Falcones. You can see in the direction of Florida. Basically, as if I'm figuring this right from what Cuba said, it's about a mile north of the coast, in the direction of Florida from Cuba. A mile north of a small island off the coast of Cuba. Where is, they said, the El Pino Channel? All right, let me show you what AP says. This is about 100 miles south of Florida. Okay, here is... Oh, is Rubio speaking now? Hold on a second. Hang on a moment. I don't know if I have access to this. Hold on. I have a live shot of Havana. I have a live shot of Havana, Cuba. Oh my gosh. Let me get that on the screen. Then let me see if I can get you what Rubio is saying. Look, we have a live shot from Havana, Cuba. How about this? We don't often get live shots from Havana, Cuba. This is live. Wow. Look at this. Oh my gosh. Wow. Now let me try to find, hold on. It's actually in Spanish, it would be Habana. It would be Havana or Habana. Oh, that might be the end of the live shot. Oh, no, it's back. Habana or Havana, depending on how you're saying it. I think. It would be Cuba. Yeah, it would be Cuba. You're right. I'm in between the Spanish and English pronunciations. Sorry about that. My bad. Yes, it is. All right, hold on. Let me just, I want to see if we can get Rubio, I believe, is speaking. But it's not on the Department of State. I can't use the pool feed. I'll have to, he might make a comment on it now. Let me keep an eye out. Let me keep an eye out. Right now, his speaking. Oh, President Trump might have something to say about this soon. Currently closed press President Trump participates in a policy meeting. So he might have something to say about this too soon. Here's this. Yeah, so I'll keep an eye out. I don't have access to the current Rubio remarks he's saying about some, it's not particularly about this, but maybe he'll be asked about this. I'll just say Havana, Cuba, because that's how people say it in English in the U.S. Okay, one moment here. While we're looking at the live shot of Havana, Cuba, let's go over what AP said about this. Oh, Dashcam said, can you look up the boat registration? I tried to look it up briefly, and I couldn't find anything, but somebody I follow, John Paul Railton, found something. But I'll try to look it up again. Give me a moment. John Scott Railton, who I follow, he said that when he looked it up, he got what looked like a 24-foot 1981 boat. He said not a large boat for 10 people. Again, the Cuban government called it a speedboat. Give me a moment here. UXO guy just mentioned something. Hold on, I'm looking at something here. Boat registration lookup. I have to find the right site. Oh, vessel number? Would that be what it is? Vessel number? Somebody can also, maybe you'll send me. I'm sure you guys, some people out there have found it. Nope. I was looking up on the Coast Guard site. One moment here. The problem is when I look it up, I get all of these news stories about today. Normally you'd look it up like on Google and you'd get the registration. I look it up today and I get all these news stories. All right, if anyone has it handy. Oh, I'm seeing some pictures of the boat supposedly online, but I don't know if it's legit. These are legit pics. Seeing some different pictures. I'll check my chat. All right, hold on. I just want to let me summarize what's going on first. I keep saying I'm going to summarize, and then I appreciate people writing in, but I'm getting distracted, and I'm not summarizing what happened. So, as we look at this shot of Havana, Cuba, AP says Cuba's government said today that its soldiers killed 4 people aboard a speedboat registered in Florida that opened fire on Cuban officers in Cuban waters. Cuba's Interior Ministry issued a statement that provided few details about the shooting, but noted that the boat was roughly 1 mile northeast of Cayo Falcones off of Cuba's north coast. It was unclear if any U.S. citizens were aboard the boat. The government, oh, look at this. Listen to this. The Cuban government, in its statement, provided the boat's registration number, but the Associated Press was unable to readily verify details of the boat because registrations are not public in the state of Florida. Let me read that again. That's interesting. The government provided the boat's registration number, but the Associated Press was unable to readily verify details of the boat because boat registrations are not public in the state of Florida. Officials said 1 Cuban officer was injured, 4 suspects killed, and 6 others injured. It wasn't immediately known what the boat and its occupants were doing in Cuban waters. In the statement, the ministry said Cuba's government was safeguarding its sovereignty and ensuring stability in the region. As I mentioned to you, Florida's Attorney General James Uthmeier said he had ordered prosecutors to work with federal, state, and law enforcement partners to start an investigation. The Florida Attorney General said the Cuban government cannot be trusted, and we will do everything in our power to hold these communists accountable. AP says it's not unusual for skirmishes to erupt between Cuba's Coast Guard and U.S.-flagged speedboats in Cuban waters, but there have been no recent reports of passengers opening fire or being killed. In past years, some of those U.S.-flagged boats were laden with unidentified items headed towards the island, or they were going to pick up Cubans and smuggle them into the U.S. That's interesting. So let me read that part again from the AP story. So again, Associated Press says, they say it's not unusual for skirmishes to erupt between Cuba's Coast Guard and U.S.-flagged speedboats in Cuban waters, but there have been no recent reports of passengers opening fire or being killed. In past years, some of those U.S.-flagged boats were laden with unidentified items headed toward the island, or they were going to pick up Cubans and smuggle them into the U.S. I'm going to take some comments in a second from you. Hold on. Hold on. I just want to post that quote because I think it's interesting. That was again from AP. And let's see, what else do they say here? Officials with the U.S. Coast Guard, the Department of Homeland Security, and the White House excuse me, did not immediately respond to AP's request for comment. The Pentagon declined comment and directed questions to the U.S. Department of State, which did not immediately respond to a message seeking comment. The incident comes as tensions simmer between the U.S. and Cuba in the wake of mounting pressure by the Trump administration. The two countries used to collaborate on drug smuggling and other crimes, but have since stopped doing so. Ma Florida says FAFO? One moment here. Oh, breaking update. We have an update on what Marco Rubio said. He has been speaking, which I had an appearance, which I don't have the live feed of, but I guess he answered a question about it. It sounds like he said something about this. Nick Schifrin of NewsHour, at NewsHour, reports that Secretary Rubio says the boat involved in a shootout off the coast of Cuba was not a U.S. government boat or carrying U.S. government personnel. Again, Marco Rubio says the boat involved in a shootout off the coast of Cuba was not a U.S. government boat or carrying U.S. government personnel. That's from Nick Schifrin. Now, he didn't say it was, I haven't seen his whole quote, but in that part of the quote, he didn't say it wasn't U.S. citizens. Recovering rump addict says, as in not CIA? Our viewer Icomo knows says, Americans should not be in Cuban waters, period. Another question I have is this something where in the past Cuba might have handled this situation differently than they did today, if what they say happened really happened? I don't know. Zico for Yuri says it's a bad time to own a speedboat. Don Coe thinks it sounds like human smuggling. Fred Withrow says, is Rubio giving a plausible denial? BMX Kane says, you're always going to shoot back if someone shoots at you. Now, they say the boat shot at them. I cannot confirm that myself. By the way, thanks to Noob Sabbath, our new member, Jay Atria, our new member, Dr. Green is Right, our member, for the gift membership. And thank you, Dr. Green is Right, our new member. Also, thank you to John Posey. John Posey says Marco Rubio did this Viva Brigada 2506. That's what John said. Also, thank you, Jay Stowell, who says, remember the Maine. Hold on a moment here. Remember the Maine was the rallying cry, by the way, that helped push the U.S. into the Spanish-American War in 1898. Wikipedia says the Maine was a U.S. Navy ship that sank in Havana Harbor in 1898, contributing to the outbreak of the Spanish-American War. This is a strange story. This is a very strange story, I think. Oh, the Washington Post updated their story, by the way. We'll have to see what they have to say. Mason D says, Rubio calling for change in Cuba. Oh, Senator Rick Scott of Florida posted. Okay. Senator Rick Scott of Florida says, as we look at Havana, Cuba, a rare live shot from Havana, Cuba. Hey, let's get some audio. I don't remember the last time we had a live shot from Cuba. Look at this. Wow. This could be our first live shot ever from Cuba. Oh, is that a U.S. flag? Maybe that's some U.S. facility there or something. I don't know. Or a U.S. building. Give me one moment here. Okay, here is what Rick Scott had to say. Senator Rick Scott of Florida says, I agree with Representative Carlos Jimenez. We need a full investigation into this deeply concerning situation and to determine what happened. The communist Cuban regime must be held accountable. Here is a statement from Florida Congressman Carlos Jimenez. He says, SOS Cuba. Congressman Carlos Jimenez demands urgent investigation into reported killings aboard U.S. registered vessel near Cuba. Today, Congressman Carlos Jimenez issued the following statement after alarming reports that agents of the Cuban regime executed 4 individuals aboard a Florida registered vessel near Santa Clara Province, Cuba. The incident raises serious concerns about the use of lethal force against individuals on a vessel registered in the United States. Congressman Jimenez says, I am calling for an immediate investigation into this massacre. U.S. authorities must determine whether any of the victims were U.S. citizens or legal residents and establish exactly what occurred. The regime in Cuba must be relegated to the dustbin of history for its countless crimes against humanity. Congressman Jimenez is closely monitoring the situation and has requested additional details from the State Department and the U.S. military to obtain all relevant facts and ensure this matter receives the urgent attention it demands. It might be Jimenez. It might be, I guess in Spanish you'd say Jimenez, right? So I was probably pronouncing it wrong. Carlos Jimenez, as one of our viewers just said. I think the viewer is right and I was wrong. Yes, Carlos Jimenez. Thank you, viewers. By the way, I don't know if there's any connection, but about an hour ago, U.S. Southern Command said patrolling in the Caribbean. U.S. military forces in the Caribbean stand ready to defend the homeland and safeguard regional security. Our viewer, Rogue2 says, remember the rundown Speedboat. Let me go back to the live shot from Havana, and let me take some more of your comments here. Look at the live shot here. Wow, look at this. Well, look at the close-up on the American flag there. Now, I don't know what facility that is with the American flag. Wow, what a shot from Reuters. Look at this. Look at this. Guys. Some of our viewers said there's an issue with the YouTube chat. I'm sorry about that. I don't have any control over that. If you're having an issue with the YouTube chat, if you could click on send feedback and write to YouTube, that's the best thing you can do. And please let them know there's a problem. I'm very sorry about that, but I don't have control over it. By the way, our viewer Kerry Poteet sent me a Reuters report from today, which I do want to mention. Reuters reports that the U.S. today said it will allow the resale of Venezuelan oil to Cuba. So according to Reuters, the U.S. Treasury Department said today it would authorize companies seeking licenses to resell Venezuelan oil to Cuba. A move that could help ease Cuba's acute fuel scarcity. Since Washington took control of Venezuela's oil exports in early January, we can see, look, there's a ship. There's a ship on the screen. Wow. Reuters says, Since Washington took control of Venezuela's oil exports in early January, in the aftermath of the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, Venezuela's supply of oil to Cuba has stopped, worsening an energy crisis in the communist-run country that is hitting power generation and fuel for vehicles, houses, and aviation. Venezuela had, for more than 25 years, been the main supplier of crude and fuel to its political ally, Cuba. Look at the boat. Live boat coverage. Wow, incredible. Look at that. Mexico, which had emerged as an alternate supplier to Cuba, also has halted shipments to Cuba since a fuel cargo arrived in Havana in January, according to shipping data. Let's see here. Even with the... by the way, Reuters also says President Trump has said Venezuela's allies that were taking its oil as part of SWAP's debt repayments and other agreements must now pay fair market prices for cargoes. Those include China and Cuba. Today, Marco Rubio arrived in the Caribbean to begin talks with leaders who have warned that Cuba's growing humanitarian crisis could destabilize the region. Even with the new policy, it is not clear whether Cuba can afford oil purchases without favorable terms. The U.S. Treasury's guidance also... Ooh, there's another boat, I think, at the bottom there. Maybe. Look at that. Or a truck, at least. The U.S. Treasury's guidance also makes clear that potential transactions must support the Cuban people, including the private sector. Again, there's a live shot from Havana. I want to comment in a little bit. A whole other story that was happening today is there was a federal law enforcement was doing a search, I think, of the superintendent's home, of school superintendent's home. We'll talk about that shortly. Our viewer Sensui says, "R.I.P. Cuba. This is the excuse the U.S. needed." All right, for those who are just turning in, I'm going to read the report from the Cuban government again. Here is what the Cuban government had to say. I'll even put it on the side of the screen for you, but I want to leave the shot up from Havana. Here, look. By the way, thanks so much to our moderators. We have moderating right now. We have, hang on a moment here. Over on... Give me a moment. Give me one moment so I can see. We have Big Ball of Yarn, LB Prairie Dawn, Matthew Kohai 3, and Surly Dev on Twitch. Thanks to Lear86 for subscribing on Twitch. Also, we have moderating over there on Facebook. Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Riley, Ava Knight. Thanks so much for Susan Priest Buchner for being a subscriber, and Jennifer Ellers for subscribing over there on Facebook. Also, Shannon Davis Hughes as well. Thanks for subscribing there. And Christy Claft, thank you. And Paul Anderson is moderating. Thank you. And Linda Belk, Larry, Misha moderate for us on X. Ruth over on YouTube moderating there. Thank you. Okay, let me read the statement from the Cuban government to get everybody up to speed here. Oops. I'll read it in 2 seconds. I'll read it in 2 seconds for you. There it is right there. As we look at the live shot from Havana. Also, hey, thanks 86GOP Forever for the memberships. That's very kind of you. I really appreciate that. Also, Swamp Puppy, thanks for being a member. If somebody gives you a gift membership or gift subscription, please thank you. Also, thanks to Noob Sabbath for becoming a member. J.A. Tria, thanks for being a member. And Dr. Greer is right as well. Okay, so the Cuban government says, Ministry of the Interior, this morning a violating speedboat was detected within Cuban territorial waters. The vessel, registered in Florida, United States, with registration number FL7726SH, approached up to 1 nautical mile northeast of the El Pino Channel in Cayo Falcones, Corralillo Municipality, Villa Clara Province. When a surface unit of the Border Guard troops of Cuba, of the Ministry of the Interior, carrying 5 service members, approached the vessel for identification, the crew of the violating speedboat opened fire on the Cuban personnel, resulting in the injury of the commander of the Cuban vessel. As a consequence of the confrontation, as of the time of this report, 4 aggressors on the foreign vessel were killed and 6 were injured. The injured individuals were evacuated and received medical assistance. In the face of current challenges, Cuba reaffirms its determination to protect its territorial waters based on the principle that national defense is a fundamental pillar of the Cuban state in safeguarding its sovereignty and ensuring stability in the region. Investigations by the competent authorities continue in order to fully clarify the events. Irish G-Star says FAFO'd? Hi Chewy, I think it was, says another Bay of Pigs. Moose says, whoa, they opened fire. Well, that's what the Cuban government says. Lakers Nation says Venezuela, Iran, Ukraine, Taiwan, and now we want to add Cuba. Oh, Niz Taco thinks the flag is in front of the U.S. Embassy. That's what Niz Taco said. I was wondering where that flag was, that American flag. Hold on. Oh, we can see the embassy. That is the embassy. It's right there. Hey, look, guys. Look at this. Look at this. Wait one moment. Wait one moment. So, check it out. Here is Wikipedia. There is the U.S. Embassy in Cuba, in Havana. See the building right there? Right? There's the building. And also, it's right on the coast. Right there, that's from Bim Im Garden's photograph on Wikipedia right there. See right there? There it is. Now look at our live shot. If you can look in a second. It's right there. That's the embassy. So that is the U.S. We're looking at the U.S. Embassy. Wow. Thanks to the viewer. Niels Taco mentioned that. Swamp Puppy says, mis mensajes están bloqueados. Apparently not. Apparently they're not blocked. Johnny C says, we need to spread our democracy there. Okay, let me see if I have any other updates on this story from maybe any new reporting coming out on this. But there's so much we don't know. J.D. Vance said a short while ago that he'd been briefed by Marco Rubio and that there was a lot they didn't know. Now, hang on a moment here. The Washington Post says it was not immediately clear why the boat would have been traveling so close to Cuba's north-central Villa Clara province. The Washington Post said the Trump administration has been blowing up private vessels in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific Ocean since September. U.S. authorities have reported 42 strikes on boats it says were smuggling drugs, killing at least 143 people. Tensions between Washington and Havana have escalated in recent weeks as President Trump's effective oil embargo on the communist nation worsens a years-long humanitarian crisis, says the Post. After capturing Venezuelan President Maduro in a raid on January 3rd, the Trump administration took control of Venezuela's oil exports and banned petroleum deliveries on which Cuba relied. In an executive order last month, Trump declared the Cuban government's policies, practices, and actions an unusual and extraordinary threat to U.S. national security and threatened to impose tariffs on all goods from any country that supplied it with oil. Marco Rubio, who is the Miami-born son of Cuban immigrants, and now the Secretary of State, has said the administration hopes its economic chokehold will help topple what he has called the illegitimate regime in Havana. A spokesman for the UN Secretary General warned this month that the Trump administration's moves could precipitate a humanitarian collapse in Cuba and urged dialogue. In a shift, the U.S. Treasury Department issued new guidance today, loosening some restrictions on fuel. Our viewer, My Mind Spray, says only we can blow up speedboats. Okay, a little more reporting on what Marco Rubio had to say a few minutes ago. According to the New York Times, he said, according to the New York Times, Secretary of State Rubio said a few minutes ago that so far the U.S. is relying on the Cuban government for facts about what happened. I don't know if that's really true. He said, as we gather more information, we'll be prepared to respond accordingly. And he did say that that the incident did not involve U.S. government personnel and he said it was not an American government operation. Oh, also, the New York Times says the records on the boat registered in Florida don't say much, including who owned it. Records purchased off a website for protective boat buyers say it was last purchased in 2022 and is registered for commercial use. 8 years ago, it was registered for recreational use. Wow. Hold on a second here. So again, the New York Times says they bought records online, and it didn't say that much. What was this boat being used for? I do not know. And the Times says the records they bought don't even say who owned it. Moose says the boaters got smoked by Cubans. Our viewer NJ Poolboy says, I wonder how many times this has happened before but went unreported. Oh, the camera went darker. The camera went darker. Some viewers are saying a lot of, so their like comments are disappearing on YouTube. Again, I've heard some viewers say there's problems with the YouTube chat. I don't have any control of that. I haven't changed anything on my end. I would encourage you to let YouTube know, send feedback to them if there are problems. RCK Lynn says, isn't that where the quote acoustic weapon was directed at? Well, it was that whole thing. Hold on. Havana syndrome is a disputed medical condition, says Wikipedia. Starting in 2016, in about a dozen overseas locations, a dozen U.S. and Canadian government officials and their families reported symptoms associated with a perceived localized loud sound. Oh, Claxon says, our viewer Claxon claims YouTube is translating chat to Spanish? Is that what's happening? Have they posted about it? Yes, I'm seeing people post online saying that chats are in Spanish. Is that what's happening? So, so you guys aren't typing it in Spanish, it's just changing it to Spanish? Is that what's going on? Hold on a moment here. I was like, boy, a lot of our viewers are typing in Spanish today. Let me see if this happens to me. All right, so I'm turning it on. I'm opening up the chat. I can see the chat, but I haven't posted it. What if I posted it? This is a test of the YouTube chat. Okay, I posted a message in English, and my message is still in English, but everybody else's is pretty much in Spanish. No, it's only on YouTube. Is that what's going? Either that's what's going on, or everybody's typing in Spanish. Didn't do it to me though. Hold on. I'd love to confirm this, but it seems like something might be very wrong. Unless all of our viewers decided to just start typing in Spanish. No, I am seeing a few comments in English. I will say that. There are some that are in English. So, but a bunch of viewers, so I don't know if it's a YouTube problem or people are just typing in Spanish. But if it's people typing in Spanish, it's a lot of people. My comment is still in English. All right. Let me see if we can find anything more about the Cuba story. Oh, hold on a second. I was going to try to find more for you about Cuba. Oh, hey guys, a couple different reports have said this about this boat, that it's a 24-foot Proline motorboat. Typically, a boat like that has a capacity for 8 to 10 people, says the New York Times. So again, the New York Times and also a person I follow named John Scott Railton says this appears to be a 24-foot 1981 Proline boat. Not a huge boat. So that's interesting. Oh, did we lose the feed from Havana? Let's see. We might be done with our feed from Havana. Well, we'll see what happens. Hang on. Okay, so we did get a feed for a while from Havana, Cuba, which was interesting. Guys, the Wall Street Journal says that Marco Rubio a few minutes ago said we have various different elements of the U.S. government that are trying to verify. Oh wait, it's back. The feed is back. It's not over yet. The Havana feed is back. Marco Rubio said we have various different elements of the U.S. government that are trying to verify elements of the story. Rubio also said we obviously want to have access to these people if they are American citizens and U.S. residents. Something else that the Wall Street Journal points out is this incident came one day after the 30th anniversary of Cuba's downing of 2 civilian aircraft operated by the humanitarian activist group Brothers to the Rescue during a mission seeking Cuban rafters off the Straits of Florida. Mary B. Spears says, "Free Cuba." A viewer sent me what he claims is information about this. About the boat that says 1981, 23 to 24 feet. Thank you, I Read Cappy, for sending that in. Matches what I've seen reported elsewhere. Have people had this issue in the YouTube chat with other channels today? Some of our viewers are claiming that on YouTube that it's either changing captions to Spanish, changing chat messages to Spanish, or only posting them in Spanish. So some of them are claiming that. Our viewer, by the way, Tim says, oh, we might have lost the stream. Our viewer, Tim, says that this isn't big news anywhere else and that the U.S. isn't going to do crap. So people are saying yes. A bunch of our viewers are saying they've had this with other channels too. A bunch of our viewers. Yeah, I'm seeing people are a bunch of people are saying that this is happening on YouTube. Sorry about that. Hey, thanks to Wildcat Mahone, who says free visas for all Latinas, Viva Cubanas. Hey, thanks Wildcat for your support. Thanks also OZN. Thank you. Thank you Crazy Yoda, who says, seriously, my words are all coming out in Spanish. He said it comes out in Spanish in his post. Thanks also Matthew Felty, who says English is prohibited in the chat. Thanks Captain Jenks and Daniel Daly for being members. Hang on a moment here. One moment. Thanks also Casamal Collects for subscribing on Twitch. So still nothing from... By the way, our viewer Brian Moorhead also sent me what he believes is ownership information. I cannot confirm this, though. Brian said he found it with AI, which sometimes is not correct. So I cannot confirm that, Brian, the information you're telling me. All right, so we have been bringing you updates on this story, which we still lack a lot of information about, this whole Cuba story. Maybe we can just read you again what the Cuban government said about this. I'm just seeing if I have any other reports for you on this right now. I've been looking at different outlets. And are any of these people, we don't even know if there were any U.S. citizens on this boat. We still don't know. Secretary of State Rubio said he didn't know. We don't know yet. Okay, so here again is what, this is obviously not live there. Here again is what the Cuban government said. And again, I have no idea what's going on with their chat. Apparently there's issues with the chat. Some people are saying they can only type in Spanish in the chat. or it's being changed to Spanish. I've heard both. So, again, the Ministry of the Interior says this morning a violating speedboat was detected within Cuban territorial waters. The vessel registered in Florida, United States, with registration number FL7726SH, approached up to 1 nautical mile northeast of the El Pino Channel in Cayo Falcones, Corralillo Municipality, Villa Clara Province, when a surface unit of the border guard troops of the Ministry of the Interior, carrying 5 service members, approached the vessel for identification. The crew of the violating speedboat opened fire on the Cuban personnel, resulting in the injury of the commander of the Cuban vessel. As a consequence of the confrontation, and as of the time of this report, 4 aggressors on the foreign vessel were killed and 6 were injured. The injured individuals were evacuated and receiving medical assistance. In the face of current challenges, Cuba reaffirms its determination to protect its territorial waters, based on the principle that national defense is a fundamental pillar of the Cuban state in safeguarding its authority and ensuring stability in the region. Investigations by the competent authorities continue in order to fully clarify the events. And here is what J.D. Vance again said about it earlier when he was asked about Cuba. I'm putting it on the screen right now for you. This is a short while ago.
Pauses legally obligated funds under mandatory funding from Congress, such as Medicaid? And secondly, if you can tell us anything you know about the situation off the coast of Cuba, where there's a speedboat shot. We've been briefed on that. You know, if Americans were killed or injured in it.
Yeah, so on the second thing, actually, Marco briefed me about 15 minutes ago on it, but we don't know a whole lot of details, and so I'll defer to the White House to provide more updates as we get them. Certainly, you know, a situation that we're monitoring. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more. On the question of the legal authorities, I mean, inherent in Congress's...
so there you go. He said there's a lot they don't know. Castle Keeper thinks probably special forces got rumbled. Marco Rubio said it wasn't a government operation. And I believe he said there were no government personnel involved, Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio said it was not carrying U.S. government personnel. Sandra Lee Hart says, anyone have any idea who the people were on the boat and why? Still no statement from President Trump on this yet that I have heard. I haven't heard a statement from the White House press secretary. I don't believe there's been an official State Department statement on this, or the Pentagon. Cindy J says YouTube is hacked all over. Oh, SWOK Sooner says some other live streams on YouTube are having the same thing. You know, one way I could check this is I could check YouTube live streams and see if there's people posting a lot of Spanish in there. But maybe people are just, I don't know if that's really happening or if it's just, is it the case that maybe everyone is just, for the fun of it, posting Spanish? The NASA stream doesn't have a chat. The ABC News stream has a lot of Spanish. I don't know. SP says, quit breaking YouTube. Yeah, Wickedest Witch mentioned that earlier today. Where is they even still have that posted there? Hold on. Hang on a moment. Yeah, so the New York Times said early news reports in the United States indicated the Speedboat was part of a flotilla of an undetermined number of boats. Updated intelligence now confirms just a single boat was attacked. So they posted that 3 hours ago. That's not the New York Times saying there was a flotilla. And I did not hear any kind of news reports myself that said it was part of a flotilla. What I should do is I should try to post a test post on somebody else's stream. And then see, because when I tried to post it on my own stream, it worked fine. Maybe what I'll do, maybe I'll go to somebody else's stream and I'll do a test post and see if it... So the idea is if you go to somebody's stream, it changes your comments to Spanish, people are saying. No, but I'm seeing some comments in English.
The building.
Hold on, here's...
President.
His test post won't work? Why won't my test post work? I don't know what's going on. Fred says maybe it's limited to Americans. Oh, you mean people who are in the U.S. because I'm still outside of the U.S.? Okay, anyways. Let's... I do want to mention, so I'm going to keep an eye on Cuba. I do want to mention a couple other stories and get you updates on those. There's a whole other story going on with the U.S. Federal law enforcement. Let me just make sure I don't have any other live shots from this story. Give me one moment here before I do this. Oh, hold on. Oh, no. I had a little video from Havana, but it's not a live shot. It says Coast Guard boats are seen docked at Pote after Havana said it killed 4 on Florida registered speedboat. But that's not a live shot from Havana. That's not as interesting. There's this whole thing about that federal law enforcement in the Los Angeles school superintendent. Have you heard about this? Let's talk about that for a second. Colt Cabani says, could there be a connection with the U.S. Embassy in Cuba and the proximity of the shooting at sea? Look at this. All right, so we'll get back to Cuba in a moment, but I do want to talk about this for a second. This is a whole other interesting story. Look at this story. FBI searches Los Angeles School District headquarters and the superintendent's home. I feel like this story was flying a bit under the radar today. The FBI served warrants today at the Los Angeles Unified School District's headquarters and the home of its leader, a former superintendent of the year who was knighted by Spain for its work. The nature of the federal investigation involving the nation's second largest school district and Superintendent Alberto Carvalho's home was not immediately clear. The school district said in a statement, this was a short while ago. Look at the school district statement. Here it is. Los Angeles Unified School District. We have been informed of law enforcement activity at the Los Angeles Unified School District headquarters and at the home of the superintendent. The district is cooperating with the investigation, and we do not have further information at this time. Which is very strange. Fast Eddie, I don't know where that report you see is coming from. TV news footage showed agents in FBI shirts and jackets outside the superintendent's home, about 20 miles south of downtown LA. There was no visible sign of agents outside the LA district's headquarters as of mid-morning. A spokesperson for the FBI's Los Angeles field office confirmed that agents were at the properties to serve warrants, but declined to comment further because affidavits laying out details for the basis for the searches were under seal. In California, the superintendent, whose home was searched today, has stood out as a harsh critic of the Trump administration's aggressive immigration crackdown, especially following raids in Los Angeles last year. When its 500,000 students returned to classes in the fall, Carvalho urged immigration authorities not to conduct enforcement activity within a 2-block radius of schools. So what is going on with this? I don't know. N-Tug says this is all because he was anti-ICE. Yeah, I do not know. What is the nature of this? Is this searching, are these searches today searches that are going after the superintendent because of his position toward the Trump administration? I do not know. Let me show you something else on this. Again, I think this story is a bit under the radar today. Oh, I have an update of a quote from Marco Rubio about the Cuba situation. So let me just go back to this. As we've been covering here, Cuba says it killed 4 people and injured 6 others on a speedboat that had gone into Cuba that was registered in Florida, a speedboat registered in Florida that was about a mile off the Cuban coast. And they claimed that when they went to go check out the boat, the people in the boat fired at Cuban authorities, and Cuba ended up killing 4 people on the boat and injuring 6 others. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, says Reuters, told reporters it was not a U.S. operation and that no U.S. government personnel were involved. Cuban authorities made the U.S. aware of the incident, but the U.S. Embassy in Havana would attempt to independently verify what happened, Rubio said. Rubio said, "We are going to have our own information on this. We are going to figure out exactly what happened. And there are a number of things that could have happened here," Rubio said. "Suffice to say, it is highly unusual to see shootouts in the open sea like that." So Rubio calls it a shootout. The incident took place as the U.S. has blocked virtually all oil shipments to Cuba, increasing pressure on the communist-run government. American forces captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in Caracas on January 3rd, removing a key Cuban ally from power, and Rubio reiterated his rhetoric against the Cuban government today, calling the status quo unsustainable and saying Cuba needed to change dramatically. Speedboats smuggling people off of Cuba have skirmished with Cuban forces in the past, including one incident in 2022 in which the Cuban Border Patrol killed one suspected smuggler, according to a Cuban government statement. It was one of 13 speedboats coming from the U.S. to be intercepted in the first half of 2022. Despite largely antagonistic relations between the U.S. and Cuba for 67 years, the two countries have cooperated on matters of drug trafficking and human smuggling in the Straits of Florida, notably during the period of rapprochement under former President Obama. In today's incident, says Reuters, the speedboat came within 1 nautical mile of a channel on Falcones Cay on the north coast of Cuba, about 120 miles east of Havana. Bonus Fact Manager says Cuba has a huge black market. Most likely someone was running fuel to them from the U.S. Could a 24-foot boat, if that what it was, carry that much fuel? I don't know. Sharkingly says that's also what they would say, the U.S., if it were a secretive government operation. Anatolian Alt says, we're going to invent our own reality on this. I think Anatolian Alt is referring to Rubio's comments. XX Wisco Joe says, translation, we don't believe Cuba. Honey Bunch of Slugs says, are they going to identify the people on the boat? That I don't know. It's not even clear if they were any American citizens on there. By the way, thanks to Fiona Diamond for your support. Thanks, Fiona. Thanks, Noob Sabah. Noob Sabbath, not Noob Sabbath, not Noob Sabah, Noob Sabbath. Thanks also, Switch the Channel, for your support. Golden Kitty, thank you. Benny Hill, thank you. Benny Hill says, only Spanish seems to work in the chat. If I try to speak in English, it doesn't work. Thanks, Matthew Felty, who says, English is shadow banned in the chat. Thanks also, Fox250R. Thanks, Sean Ryder, who says, even Super Chat is in Spanish, not in English. Thanks, Rec Toomfi, who says 6-7. And Iroquois, thank you. Oze, and thank you. And Marcus Plain Spotting Germany, thank you. Is it still happening with the YouTube chat? I see a couple English comments in the YouTube chat now. Someone just said, well, they didn't type on YouTube, they said on Twitch. I don't know. I don't know if it's really happening. I haven't seen anything from YouTube acknowledging this. There's a bunch of people posting online about it. Hold on a moment here. Let me see here. I'm going to try to take a different. I was trying to take a different stream. It's hard. It's hard to find a stream to check. Oh, let me go back for a second to the superintendent story. Hal Stevens mentions that. Okay, hey, Hal Stevens sent me a story from L.A. Times, and the L.A. Times says that FBI raids of the superintendent's home and office appear tied to AI chatbot probe. Then there's a question of what's that all about. The LA Times says this appears to be a probe related to a company that developed an AI chatbot for the LA school system. But again, I guess my question would be is this like a legit investigation, or is it an investigation because someone wanted him to be investigated and let's think up a reason to do it? Right? So I don't know. Hold on a moment. Rose says only a few of us can type in English in the YouTube chat. Hang on just a moment here. So there's an article here from the Washington Post about FBI searches LA Unified School District office, home of superintendent, who's like the head official in the school system, which has more than 500,000 students. FBI agents today searched the headquarters of the Los Angeles Unified School District and the home of its superintendent. Law enforcement officers served a search warrant at the school district, the second largest in the nation, and the nearby home of its superintendent, said the FBI. The FBI also searched an address in Southwest Ranches, Florida, as part of the same investigation. The FBI did not disclose the reason for the searches. Generally, searches occur in the early stages of FBI investigations. The LA school district is home to more than 500,000 students, a majority of whom are Hispanic or Latino. The superintendent has clashed with the Trump administration in recent months. In January, the 1776 Foundation, a conservative education advocacy group, sued the Los Angeles School District over a decades-old program that offered benefits to Black, Hispanic, Asian, and other non-white students, describing the program in the lawsuit as overt discrimination against a new minority white students. Last Wednesday, the Justice Department moved to join the case. The department claimed in a news release it wanted to do so to combat racial discrimination. In August, the school district began standing up safe zones to shield students traveling to and from school from ICE officers. ICE agents then briefly and mistakenly detained a teenage LAUSD student. The superintendent, Carvalho, has publicly shared his experience as a former undocumented immigrant. So again, what is happening with this FBI searching the LA Unified School District headquarters and the home of its superintendent? Again, to me, that story is flying under the radar. Strong One says this guy publicly spoke against Trump, totally not retribution for free speech. Again, I have no idea what the FBI has not said what they're doing this for. We don't know yet. Are there going to be some criminal charges filed? No idea. Hey, Seth Stute says, I'm typing in English. Magus says, it looks like it's clearing up now in the chat. Oh, look, hey, YouTube posted about it. YouTube posted about the issue. Breaking news, YouTube has posted about this. But they said, we're aware some of you are running into issues sending live chat and super chat messages. If you try to post and they disappear without error messages, our teams are looking into it and will continue to share updates here. I'm going to say a number of unconfirmed reports online claim that people are unable to post messages in English. I call them unconfirmed reports. A number of unconfirmed reports online claim that people have been unable to post messages in English on YouTube live streams. Again, I don't know if that's true, but Team YouTube does say, we are aware some of you are running into issues sending live chat and super chat messages. You try to post and they disappear without error messages. Our teams are looking into it and will continue to share updates here. I have seen other people, besides my chat, people online, claiming it's an issue with the English. I don't know. You can see they also said, we've heard that some of you are having issues sending messages in live chat and super chat. Our teams are aware and looking into this. Here's what might be happening on your end. Messages disappear immediately after sending. Messages require multiple attempts to go through. We'll follow up here once we have more information. Barcodable says disappearing English. Yes, Sarza says noticias de última hora, breaking news. I will say this, for what it's worth, people in this chat on YouTube seem to have been able to post in Spanish, because I've seen a lot of I have seen a lot of messages in Spanish being posted. Oh, I also wanted to mention. I also wanted to mention the. There was some activity over at the Nancy Guthrie house today. I wanted to mention that for a second. Hold on, let me just check something here. Oh, this is interesting. Thanks to our viewers who mentioned something that AZ Intel uncovered from Telemundo. A couple of our viewers, Annie Sondon and FTBT, found a report from AZ Intel, posted this from Telemundo. Hold on. Give me one moment here. Where is this? Yes, so this is very interesting. I'm going to pass this along. Thanks to AZ Intel for posting this, and a number of our viewers for mentioning it to me. Update on the whole Cuba story. Supposed update from Telemundo 51 Miami via AZ Intel. So, Telemundo Miami 51 says, 2 agents from the FBI arrived at a house in Miami Lakes presumed to be linked to the reported confrontation today, where the authorities, Cuban authorities, said they killed 4 people and injured 6 on a boat registered in the U.S. Remember, the Cuban authorities said there was a speedboat that was about a mile off the northern coast of Cuba in Cuban territorial waters today. They approached it. The boat started firing on the authorities, claims Cuba, and then Cuba killed 4 people on the boat and injured 6 others. They didn't really give much other detail besides that, though. So, again, AZ Intel found this in Telemundo 51. Telemundo 51 said the FBI, 2 FBI agents, arrived at a house in Miami Lakes. I assume that's Florida, Miami Lakes. At a house presumably linked to what happened today. Yes, Miami Lakes is in Miami-Dade County. Telemundo 51 says, let's see here. According to public records, the owner of the boat that was identified by Cuba also, did they say also owns a house in Miami Lakes? Let me see. Let me just make sure I'm translating this correctly here. Is also listed, it's also listed as the owner of a house in Miami Lakes. Hold on. Okay. They also say Telemundo 51 visited the address that appears in property registries of the boat, right? Of the boat. Hold on. Just want to make sure I'm doing this right. Yes. Telemundo 51 visited the address that appears in the records, the property records of the boat, to get reactions to the incident. Okay. They say, while we were finding the place, a man approached us and identified himself as an agent of the FBI. That agent talked with a person through a security camera located at the door of the residence. Telemundo has tried to talk to family members of the person associated with the address, but up to now, they have not received a response. Wow. I'm going to post a link to this report in the chat. Very interesting report. They actually have a video of them at this house. So they say, Telemundo 51 says, again, good reporting by them. Thanks again to AZ Intel for mentioning this report, founding this report. So Telemundo in Miami says that 2 FBI agents arrived at a house in Miami Lakes, which is presumably linked with what happened today with the boat. They say that the record, that the boat ownership public record has an address on it. And that address, the owner of the boat is also listed as the owner of a property in Miami Lakes, Florida. And when they went to this property, well, actually, let me make sure. Did they go to the property address or did they go to the boat address? I need to get this fully translated properly. Hang on. No, so what they did is they visited. Oh, it's the house? Anyways, they visited the address on the boat's ownership record, okay? And when they were at this address, a man approached and said they were an FBI agent. And then the FBI agent talked to somebody at the house through a security camera. And Telemundo has not been able to reach any relatives of the person associated with the address. Right, now one of our viewers, Dennis Graham, says the boat address changes. So I don't know that house that the FBI and Telemundo were at today. I don't know if that house actually is connected with anyone who was involved in this boat thing today. Maybe the whatever address someone found on this boat registry is no longer the correct address of the owner of the boat or something. I don't know. But the FBI was at this house. Burley Guy says that sounds a bit fishy. Fishy. Hey, is the chat working now? Is the chat working? I'm seeing a lot of English comments now in the chat. Is it fixed? Maybe? A bunch of our viewers are saying yes. They have not posted YouTube that it's fixed. But a bunch of our viewers are saying it's fixed. By the way, JD63, that's very kind of you, JD63. I really appreciate your support. Thank you. Also, Matthew Felty, thank you, Matthew, for your support. Matthew says, never we saw your chat. De prueba? Prueba is evidence, isn't it? Well, de prueba maybe is a phrase. Test? Well, that is the true meaning of shadow ban. That's what Matthew says. Something like that. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Scoobs, by the way. Scoobs4 and Flor Moreno, who said you can practice your Spanish. Thanks, Edward. Edward says that the YouTube chat issue depended on your location. Thanks, Edward. Thanks, Bernard Tappy69. Thanks also to... oh, we never saw your chest chat. I see. That makes sense, Matthew. Matthew said, we never saw your test chat. Oh, you never saw it? I saw it. Did you guys not see it? When I posted a chat and I said test or something, Matthew said they never saw it. Interesting. Thank you. Jason is right. And also, hang on a moment here. Thank you, Chewy85 on Twitch and Poteet KD on Twitch, who says English was banned in YouTube chat. It seems like it might be fixed. Thanks to Smooth Hound and Casamal Collects for subscribing on Twitch, and Arrow51 and Lear886. People are saying they never saw my test chat. That was a while ago. That's interesting. Anyways, as I said, certainly there was some sort of issue going on. I saw people in our chat and some other people online claiming it had to do with the language you people posted. I'm not sure if that was the issue. As I said, there were unconfirmed reports. But YouTube did say that there was an issue where people live chat and super chat messages were disappearing without error messages. Beautiful Messy Ball says she was in a different chat earlier and it was happening for many of us. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I did want to quickly mention, someone says, tell them to try $100 super chat. Exactly. Hey, thanks, Always Questioning. Always Questioning says, LA chatbot probe, 6 million funds misspent, missing money, selling info and other issues, sources, LA schools report, investigations going for over a year. Yeah, so I don't know why exactly the FBI was at the superintendent of LA's house today and at the LA U.S. School District's headquarters, the LA School District's headquarters office. Again, the LA Times had said it might involve some sort of AI chatbot probe, but again, even if that's true, there would be a question of like, well, was someone looking for a reason to investigate them, or not? So again, I just don't know. Again, the LA Times said one source with knowledge of the matter said it involved Unclear, a failed AI company whose founder was charged with fraud in 2024. Okay, let's see here. Oh, I did want to mention, I don't really have details on the whole. There were new people over at the Nancy Guthrie house today. Well, there was some activity, law enforcement activity at the Nancy Guthrie house today. I don't really have much detail about why exactly they were there today. I did want to show you something, though, about this, which is hold on a moment here. Brian Enton had said that, for example, there was a bunch of SUVs that showed up at Nancy Guthrie's garage today. There was a white van that was there. Some people dressed in suits were at Nancy Guthrie's house today. But I wanted to show you something about the Nancy Guthrie house today. I wanted to show you something about this no parking zone they created today. I just saw this as we were coming on the air. So check this out. This is from Pima County. This is from Pima County. Look at this. This is from the county where Nancy Guthrie's house is. She is still missing terribly. Catalina Foothills Estates temporary no parking zone. Look at what the county said. More restrictive parking rules for Nancy Guthrie neighborhood. The Pima County Department of Transportation has created a new no parking zone on several streets in the Catalina Foothills Estate neighborhood surrounding the Nancy Guthrie residence as a further measure to protect public safety and relieve area residents from chaotic conditions caused by a large media and social streamer presence in the area. The change goes into effect tomorrow. Background and current conditions. Dozens of media and, quote, streamers have been camped out on North Camino Escalante for several weeks after an intense search began February 1st for Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of NBC Today show Savannah Guthrie. Nancy Guthrie was last seen January 31st. Streamers and media members have set up tents, generators, and sometimes satellite trucks along the road, creating severe congestion and safety concerns, and at times blockages of the quiet neighborhood road. An attempt starting February 21st to restrict North Camino Escalante to a one-way road to allow traffic flow, but also accommodate media and social streamers has not worked as hoped. Neighbors have continued to complain bitterly as they contend with continued clogged roads, trespassing, noise, and accumulating trash along the road. Additionally, because of the one-way restriction, streamers and other members of the public have been parking on connected roads and cul-de-sacs, spreading the congestion and safety concerns to other parts of the neighborhood. The neighborhood has narrow, unstriped streets that were not designed for on-street parking. To protect public safety and restore the neighborhood to more normal conditions that allow access to the community for emergency vehicles and fire trucks, as well as service vehicles such as school buses, trash trucks, and the Postal Service, the county has created a temporary no parking zone to be enforced by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Media or streamers will have to access the neighborhood from a legal parking location outside of the zone, get dropped off, or use ride-sharing or taxi services. Anyways. I wanted to mention that. Our viewer, Vanger, says there was new information about a 911 call that was made 3 miles from Nancy's home, stating a woman was heard yelling outside of a dark Chevy Malibu, according to Inside Edition. I haven't seen that yet. It's terrible. She's been missing for, it's getting closer to 4 weeks now. Okay, let me take a few more comments here. Mark says, do people think the U.S. will retaliate for what happened in Cuba? So many questions about this right now. Both J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio have spoken about this, and they have not said, they say the U.S. doesn't know that much. That's what they're saying. We don't even know if there were U.S. citizens on board this boat. I don't know how big of a story this is going to turn out to be. Depends on what comes out. Roger Shoemaker says the people in the boat messed up and got caught. I also don't know when we'll hear more on this from the U.S. President Trump has not posted anything about it. I haven't seen it. Lord Furs says, my guest is drug runners. Nocturnal Emissions says it has the potential to be huge. Huge. All right. Guys, I don't really have more to tell you about the Cuba story at this point. You know, we talked a bunch about it, and I certainly am open to covering it more as we find out more information. But we just don't have that much more information right now that I'm aware of. I'll do a last check here, but I've been bringing you what we know. Our viewer Ibanimus says it could be used as an excuse for a full naval quarantine of Cuba. Shanks think it'll all be spin after this. Roger thinks the people will be used as bargaining chips. Uretti thinks CIA is missing a couple of operatives. Carnus Towen said all speculation. There's a lot we don't know. Okay, well, look, I don't really have, let me just see, I just saw another article, but I don't know that I have any more to tell you on this, but I'm certainly going to keep a close eye on this story. Yeah, we don't have a lot right now. All right, so look, yeah, Marco Rubio said it wasn't somebody with the, it wasn't U.S. government personnel on the boat. That's what he said. So, look, I'm going to start wrapping up this stream because I don't really have much else to tell you. But I will keep an eye on this story. If there's big news on it, we can come on there and do another stream. I'm also keeping an eye on the other story we talked about with the FBI carrying out search warrants on the LA Unified School District headquarters and the home of the LA Unified School District superintendent. It's not clear why. So I'm keeping an eye on that story. Obviously, we're keeping an eye on Iran to see if there's big news there. I believe there's still supposed to be talks tomorrow involving Iran and the U.S. That's another thing to keep an eye on. And who knows what else is going to happen. So I'm going to start wrapping up this stream. But if there's big news tonight or tomorrow or whatever, we will do more breaking news coverage. So I really appreciate you joining this live stream. And I will also post updates on my X account about the news when I'm not off the air on X. I am at Lookner on X. You can follow me over there. And if you'd like, I don't know if you could tell, I ran out of water a little while ago, and I was like, well, I don't want to grab more. I don't want to take a break and grab more water, but I should have. I have no water. So I'm sorry if I'm a little parched. Give me one. Maybe I'll take 1 second and get some water. For those who want to wait 15 seconds, if you want to wait 15 seconds for the very end of the stream, those who might want to, I really need to just pour a glass of water for myself. So I'm just going to do that for anybody who feels like sticking around. Hold on a second. I'll leave this on the screen for 15 seconds. I need 15 seconds. Give me 15 seconds. Okay, anyways, so yes, I will be keeping an eye on this story. I'll be keeping an eye on Iran, keeping an eye on the LA School District story, and again, if there's big news tonight, we can come on there and do another stream. So if you'd like, subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV. We cover all kinds of live breaking news, and we even covered we were trying to cover the YouTube chat incident today, which was kind of strange. And YouTube has not announced that that's been fixed officially yet. So there certainly seemed to be some sort of issue with the chat involving maybe people not being able to post in English, but people's messages disappearing. Okay, so again, subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV, and I would also suggest turn on the notifications. I never know when we're going live. I never know when big news is going to happen, but you can get notified whenever we're coming on the air by turning on the notifications. They're free. We do it through Discord. The mods will post a link to sign up for the notifications in the chat. You can find the link to sign up for the notifications in the description of this video on YouTube and Facebook. Sign up for those free notifications so you don't miss a stream. And what else did I want to mention? Again, I will post on X news updates when I am off the air. And but really appreciate people watching, sending in your comments, sending me the news updates, and helping with the news here. Thank you. Also, big thanks to our moderators. You are fantastic. They're the reason that we can have chat rooms. Our moderators, they keep everything under control there. Beth Mythical Ruth, Leslie Ladyhawk, Roberts May Queen over there on YouTube. Thank you. Also, Linda Belk, Larry, and Misha moderate for us on X. And over on, one moment here, over on Twitch, our moderators over there, 13 Alamo, Big LB Prairie Dawn, I Got That Fire, Matthew Kohai 3, and Surly Dev, big thanks. And over there on Facebook, Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Riley, Paul Anderson, Ava Knight, thank you so much for moderating. And thanks to everybody who donated too. That's super nice of you guys. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. I owe a thanks, by the way, to Noob Sabbath 7 for the gift memberships. Thank you so much. Also, Matthew Felty. Matthew says, we again drove through YouTube issues to the other side. Yay. Says, good job, chat. Great job, chat. Thank you, Matthew. Really appreciate that. Thanks, Fiona Diamond, who says, Super Chat's now working. Apparently it is. Thank you, Fiona. Also, switch the channel. Thank you. And always questioning. Thank you. And our member 7J Bartley from Ontario, Canada. Thank you. Also, hold on, I got to thank people on. Did I thank everybody over on Twitch? Device X. Thanks for subscribing, Device X, on Twitch. All right. Also, Texas Woman, thanks for the gift membership. If you ever want to donate, you go to agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. But again, huge thanks for supporting the channel. It's so nice of you guys. I really appreciate it. Hey, also, for those of you on X, I always post. Another great way to find out when we're going live is follow us on X. I always post there when we're going live. Before we go live, I give you a heads up there. I post updates about the channel there at AgendaFree TV on X. Hang on a moment here. And we do have a chat where you can chat with other viewers when we're not on the air, the Discord chat. Check out the Discord chat. It's free. It's the same link as the free notifications link. So check that out. And huge thanks to our Discord mods who mod the Discord chat. Really appreciate you. And also, hey, for those who watch on YouTube, for those who watch over there, I would suggest turning on the YouTube notifications. Another good way to find out when we're live. If you want to do that, subscribe to the channel and then click on the bell and choose all notifications. If you're already subscribed, click on the bell and choose all notifications to turn the notifications on. And also, hey, I want to shout out our Facebook subscribers. Hold on a moment here. Our Facebook subscribers, like Christy Claft, thanks for subscribing. Susan Priest-Buchner, Margaret Riley, Helen Anderson, Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Riley. Susan Priest-Buchner, thanks for the Facebook stars. That's very nice of you. Thank you. Let's see here. Our viewer, Ann Hajnacki, said, wonder where the 6 wounded were taken for treatment. We didn't hear that. We don't know where they are right now from the boat. What are their conditions? We don't know. All of our other Facebook subscribers, thank you. Also, our Twitch subscribers. People like, thanks so much, Matthew Kohai 3, CC, Wall Street, Shaggy, Amalian, and Chi-Town Bear, Pebbles Flintstone, thank you, and Shrocky, Pimp Cat, and all of our other Twitch subscribers, thank you so much, and our YouTube members, thank you so much to all of our YouTube members. Patricia Grace, Eric Johnson, the one and only, as was, Sydney, Soka Deb, EIM 207, Platinum Dose, JK Cinar, CAC 813, Kina Rose, Lotto Texas, Roger Shoemaker, the one and only Benny Hill, all of our other YouTube members, thank you. And all of our other viewers, Kariba Guyan, and Jack Straw, Bulldog Kush, 13 Alamo. Thanks for moderating 13 Alamo, and all of our other moderators. Key 7, Erin Weirdo, Burly Guy, Karna Stowen, thanks for watching. Juliana Martin, Terry Murill, Billy Anderson, David Karshan. All right, we're wrapping this up. Oh, and thanks, by the way, to Noob Sabbath for the gift membership. Very nice of you. Thank you. And again, hey, look, this story, this Cuba story, it's one of these stories, it could end up having huge ramifications or not. We don't know. We'll have to see what comes out. So we'll just have to see what happens with it. All right? So I'll keep an eye out, and if we need to do more streaming on it, we will. All right, guys. So that is it for now. Thank you for watching our live coverage, and we will see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.